guys at film festivals or yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ Film Festival. This is our 38th annual festival. We have an amazing lineup this year. I cannot wait to show everybody our films. One of our centerpiece films is Drive Back Home, directed by Michael Clowater. It's a road comedy about two brothers who reconnect and and um, sort of try to set aside their differences as they look forward to our future. It's one of my favorite films of this year. I'm really happy we're showing it. Thank you, Michael.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you like the film.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that this is a personal project for you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Like it's loosely based on my grandfather and his
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
And the true story of it is that I believe it was in like the late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah.
My grandfather is from New Brunswick, Canada, which is a province on the east coast of Canada, just above Maine.
Yeah.
And he'd never left his home before. And the only time that he did is he got a phone call that his brother had been arrested in Montreal, not Toronto, for having sex with another man in a public park.
Yeah.
And at the time, the laws were such that it was illegal,
Yeah.
and you would go to jail. And so the workaround that they had at the time was, because it was largely considered consensual, at the police station level, you know, they weren't 100% sure what to do with people,
Yeah.
but I think on a personal level, they disapproved of it and they wanted to punish them. So the workaround that they came up with was if you were arrested for a crime like this, they called it indecent exposure.
Yeah.
If you were arrested for that, what would happen is if you could call a close family member, your spouse, or your employer,
Hmm.
and have them come vouch for you, they would just release you.
Okay.
And the alternative was going to jail for potentially as long as 4 years. And so when I heard about that part of it, to me that sounded like extra cruel, because it means that they didn't really think it was a crime. They just disapproved of the people. And so their workaround was, well, if you ruin your life for us and out yourself to the people in your life that you care about, well, then we'll be just fine with it.
Yeah.
And to me, that is actually really different than if they believed it was a crime.
Yeah.
Like if it was bank robbery, you can't get released to your spouse if you rob a bank. So when I heard that part of the story, it became something that I thought was like an important thing to tell. And the other part of it was, and Alan and I and Charlie, the actor who played Weldon, the
Yeah.
three of us talked a lot about these things. And one of the other things that we really wanted to tell was a story just about ordinary guys,
Yeah.
like this character and my great uncle. Like he wasn't an activist. He wasn't, there wasn't an important trial or anything that changed the world. He was just sort of one of probably like hundreds of thousands of millions of people that had a life where they had to struggle to figure out their relationships with their family or whoever they had,
Yeah.
and then they died, and that was it. That was their whole life. And so I kind of wrote it as a love story between two brothers, and I wanted to set the story outside of any sort of activism or any things that go on. Like at the beginning of the film, that's why I wanted to have this big scene that felt like it was, you know, almost like this little historical lesson, or like this had this rage and this activism to it. And then you go from that scene to Stanley, New Brunswick,
Yeah.
which is a million miles away from that.
Exactly. How does
Yeah.
the time period affect all of this?
In what way?
I mean, like, when is this film set? I mean, when did you?
So the film is set in 1970.
Yes.
And so in 1969,
Yeah.
homosexuality became decriminalized in
Yeah.
Canada.
Mhm.
So I originally had set it in 1968.
Okay.
And then so I don't identify as gay or queer in any way. And so I have a bunch of good friends that I spoke to a lot and really tried to consult with. And there was a gentleman who's a history professor at the University of at York University in Toronto,
Yeah.
and he was the one who convinced me to set it in 1970
Okay.
after it had been decriminalized. And the reason why he did that was because when Pierre Trudeau decriminalized it in 1969, um, he sort of basically what he did is he decriminalized homosexuality in the bedroom, like in your
Okay.
house, but nowhere else. And so what wound up happening was raids increased.
Okay. You froze for a moment.
Um, more of a thing with it. To be honest, it feels a little similar to now, you know? And so he convinced me to set it in 1970, because that's when things actually got worse.
When you decided you wanted to make this project and sat down and write it, how long did the whole process take?
So it's interesting. So I've always had this idea in my head as an interesting story. My father told me about this when I was in university,
Yeah.
and I always thought it was an interesting story. And when the pandemic happened, in the early days of the pandemic, I sat down to write it, more to keep myself busy than anything.
Mm.
I told other people that like I always liked the story. I wanted to write it out, but in the early days of the pandemic, I genuinely thought this was a story that didn't have any relevance anymore.
Okay.
Like in my mind, there was no more issue. Like this is now a boring story,
Yeah.
right? And unfortunately, in the time between then and now, it feels like in certain ways things have gotten a lot worse, and the story kind of became relevant again.
Yeah.
And it took me probably about maybe 2 months to get a first draft down,
Okay.
and then I probably worked on that for about another 4 or 5 months, and then obviously once Alan and Charlie got involved, we
Yeah.
massaged it a little bit more. So yeah.
There's such a believability between these two, but there's obviously some tension between the brothers. But can you sort of talk about how reconnecting and having them in each other's lives again really changes both of them?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I wrote this with the intention of it being a love story between brothers that don't like each other, right? And so, that's the other part of the story that's true. Like, so the first part of the story is true is this happened. My grandfather went to get my great uncle out of jail and he drove them back home.
Yeah.
No one really knows what happened on that drive because that's not something anybody ever talked about, right? But the other part of it that was true was as much as my grandfather was a curmudgeon and grumpy and very, very conservative,
Mm.
these two men had a relationship their whole life.
Yeah.
Like they were famous in my family for kind of being jerks to each other. Like they would tease each other, they would not in a nice way, but they were always in each other's lives. So there was like a version of love that existed between them and support. And it was like this family connection that I think both of them felt really strongly, like they needed each other. Like this is what family is. Family is the people that are always going to be there for you, even if you don't really like them, you still love them. And so the story was it's Weldon's story. Like it's not Hurley's story at all. And his arc is understanding that this is who his brother is. I don't think the intention was ever for Weldon to become an activist or really understand what it means to be gay.
Yeah.
It was really more that for him to understand that this is who his brother is and that he can both love his brother and his brother can be gay. And those two things can be true at the same time. And that was all we wanted to get to in the arc of the story.
This, one of the reasons I like this so much, this sort of seems like a throwback film to me. I very much get into character dramas, character pieces, and it's very much like that. I mean, it's the kind of film I grew up on in the 70s, 80s, just two interesting people learning from each other, growing. That's just my jam. So congratulations on that. But talk to
It's
me.
mine as well.
Okay, talk to me about that. Just the challenge of making a movie, which is largely about two characters, just learning from each other and being around each other. I mean, talk to me about the challenge of as a filmmaker of making that kind of film.
Well, I heard this, I heard someone say one time that like one of the biggest um, weapons against intolerance
Yeah,
uh, was public transit. And it was just because public transit meant you had to just get on the subway with someone every day or get on a bus with someone every day
yeah,
and ride the subway. And even if you didn't talk to them, what happens is, if you've never seen a person with dark skin and, a turban on, let's say,
yeah,
right? That's all you think about them. But then you ride the subway with them every day. And after a while, it's like now they're two things.
yeah,
Now they're a person who has a turban, and they're a person who has a job, and they're a person that travels the same time as I do, and they're a person that lives sort of near me. And then maybe you say hi one day, and that's sort of how things grow, is like people stop being one dimensional
yeah,
when you're forced in a situation with each other and you're forced to learn about the other aspects of a person's life, you know? And so for Weldon and Pearlie, getting in that truck together forces them, for good or bad, to learn things about each other,
yeah.
um, and really see what they have in common with each other, which is a lot.
Exactly.
Like I would say the only thing they really don't have in common is their sexuality, but they're both,
Exactly.
one's more educated than the other, but they're both kind of curmudgeons. They're both kind of jerks, you
Yeah.
know, and that's kind of it. So,
I was going to say because I mean, both of these characters have their thorny sides. They're not always pleasant. They can be assholes sometimes. I think
for sure.
it just felt so believable that they're these together. And again, they're not. They're just you know warts and all to these two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That was a really important thing. I didn't want this to feel like any kind of savior film. I didn't want this to feel like one character was good and one character was bad and trying to be good. I I I really just wanted to be a story about brothers, and both brothers are outsiders. Like I think loneliness is a big theme of this film, and that's loneliness for both characters. Like in the beginning of it, Weldon is very alone, even though he's surrounded by family,
yeah,
and Pearlie's alone and literally alone, but they're both the same. And that's the benefit that they get out of this, is that at the end of the movie, they're not going to be great friends or anything, but they're not going to be alone anymore.
Obviously, most people are familiar with Alan Cumming. I wasn't as familiar with Charlie, but can you? I mean, again, this is certainly a two-person film. I mean, it's two-character film, and they both.
I mean, it really.
But can you sort of talk about their interplay and had they ever worked together? Did they know each other before this?
I think they knew of each other. Charlie is more well known in the UK than he is here. His most famous role in North America is Peaky Blinders. He was one of the main characters in the first season of Peaky Blinders.
Yeah,
He was the main bad guy. um, and but I had seen Charlie in this film called Wild Bill that was directed by Dexter Fletcher,
yeah,
and I loved him in that film. And I just, when I saw it, I was like, I think that's Weldon. And I have a casting director in the UK who reached out to him, and luckily Charlie loved the script, and we talked. And the interesting thing is that both Charlie and Alan have similarities with the characters.
yeah,
Like they both have, but both of them had difficult fathers, in their youth, and they both had a brother that kind of helped them through things.
yeah,
And so I think in their own ways they both connected to it and were able to bring in, their own stories into this. And what that made me really happy about is it made me feel like this is a universal story. Like Alan is from a very small town in Scotland,
yeah.
that no one in New Brunswick would ever heard of, and no one in, Scotland would ever heard of New Brunswick. But, I think these stories are universal. Like it's just the story of family and and love. And what I really like the fact that it's just an ordinary person's story that, now is out there. Like it's not going to just disappear.
Exactly. This film has been making, a good splash on the festival circuit this year. Congratulations for that.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I actually saw it. I think I saw it at Frameline, and then it's been.
Oh, great.
But just talk to me a little bit about the festival circuit, what you got from that, and where people and what you eventually hope the film will. I mean, like, was the film going to hopefully be streaming, or there be a distribution sometime in the near future?
Yeah. So the festival circuit's been really interesting.
Yeah,
It's been really fun. Frameline was amazing experience. Like the theater there that we played at was so
yeah,
fantastic.
me too. Yeah,
Um, so what's been really interesting, I think for me personally, is that, you know, like because of my own like the way that I identify, like
mhm.
I'm not gay. Because of that, I feel like um I'm trying to think of the right way to put this, but it's been an interesting experience because I feel like I've sort of stepped into worlds that I don't normally step into.
Good.
And so seeing the festival and listening to more often than not older men, that will approach me after screenings and want to talk to me and tell me what their stories are has been a really humbling experience. Like it's felt really special to me. I don't think everybody loves this film, but the people that do, I think connect with it, in a way because it reminds them of their own story.
Yeah,
And that was sort of what I wanted for the film. Like I really wanted it to speak to people that aren't historically special. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not a famous person, they're not something important event, but but a thing that happened to them was traumatic or it was huge. Like in their own life, it was like an epic story. And I think that's what it was like for our family. And I think that's what it was like for Alan when he was younger.
yeah.
And I think that's what's like for a lot of people. So that's been special for me. I'm really glad that it has connected that way. And then as far as where people can see it, it just recently got a US distributor, a company called Good Deeds Entertainment. I don't know exactly what's happening, but from the last I heard, I believe it's coming out in about mid-November sometime.
That's great.
And I'm not sure if it's in theaters or if it's going to be on streamers or whatnot, but people will be able to see it um, in the US. So yeah.
That's great. Congratulations. That's
Oh,
great.
thank you very much.
I am so happy this film is in our lineup. I mean, Drive Back Home is one of our centerpiece screenings here at Out on Film. The film screens on Sunday, um, September the 28th at 9 o'clock at the Midtown Arts Cinema. It is definitely one of our best films this year. Michael, thank you so much for sharing this film with us. And thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoys the film.
Thank you so much.